Chapter The Freedom of the Soul, delivered in London, 5th of November 1896, Part 1. The Katha Upanishad, which we have been studying, was written much later than that to which we now turn, the Chandogya. The language is more modern and the thought more organized. In the older Upanishads, the language is very archaic, like that of the hymn portion of the Vedas, and one has to wade sometimes through quite a mass of unnecessary things to get at the essential doctrines. The ritualistic literature about which I told you, which forms the second division of the Vedas, has left a good deal of its mark upon this old Upanishad, so that more than half of it is still ritualistic. There is, however, one great gain in studying the very old Upanishads. You trace, as it were, the historical growth of spiritual ideas. In the more recent Upanishads, the spiritual ideas have been collected and brought into one space. As in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, which we may perhaps look upon as the last of the Upanishads. You do not find any inkling of these ritualistic ideas. The Gita is like a bouquet composed of the beautiful flowers of spiritual truths collected from the Upanishads. But in the Gita, you cannot study the rise of the spiritual ideas, you cannot trace them to their source. To do that, as has been pointed out by many, you must study the Vedas. The great idea of holiness that has been attached to these books has preserved them more than any other book in the world from mutilation. In them, thoughts at their highest and at their lowest have all been preserved. The essential and the non essential, the most ennobling teachings and the simplest matters of details stand side by side, for nobody has dared to touch them. Commentators came and tried to soothe them down and to bring out wonderful new ideas from the old things. They tried to find spiritual ideas in even the most ordinary statements, but the texts remained, and as such, they are the most wonderful historical study. We all know that in the scriptures of every religion, changes were made to suit the growing spirituality of later times. One word was changed here and another one put there, and so on. This probably has not been done with the Vedic literature, or if ever done, it is almost imperceptible. So we have this great advantage. We are able to study thoughts in their original significance, to note how they developed, how from materialistic ideas, finer and finer spiritual ideas are evolved, until they attain their greatest height in the Vedanta. Descriptions of some of the old manners and customs are also there, but they do not appear much in the Upanishads. The language used is peculiar, terse, and mnemonic. The writers of these books simply jotted down these lines as helps to remember certain facts which they supposed were already well known. In the narrative, perhaps, which they are telling, they take it for granted that it is well known to everyone they are addressing. Thus, a great difficulty arises. We scarcely know the real meaning of any of these stories because the traditions have nearly died out, and the little that is left of them has been very much exaggerated. Many new interpretations have been put upon them so that when you find them in the Puranas, they have already become lyrical poems. Just as in the West, we find this prominent fact in the political development of Western races that they cannot bear absolute rule, that they are always trying to prevent any one man from ruling over them. They are gradually advancing to higher and higher democratic ideas, higher and higher ideas of physical liberty. So, in Indian metaphysics, exactly the same phenomena appears in the development of spiritual life. The multiplicity of gods gave place to one God of the universe, and in the Upanishads there is a rebellion even against that one God. Not only was the idea of many governors of the universe ruling their destinies unbearable, but it was also intolerable that there should be one person ruling this universe. This is the first thing that strikes us. The idea grows and grows until it attains its climax. In almost all the Upanishads, we find the climax coming at the last, and that is the dethroning of this God of the universe. The personality of God vanishes, the impersonality comes. God is no more a person, no more a human being, however magnified and exaggerated, who rules this universe, but he has become an embodied principle in every being, eminent in the whole universe. It would be illogical to go from the personal God to the impersonal, and at the same time to leave man as a person. So the personal man is broken down and man as principle is built up. The person is only a phenomena, the principle is behind it. Thus, from all sides simultaneously, we find the breaking down of personalities and the approach towards principles, the personal God approaching the impersonal, the personal man approaching the impersonal man. Then comes the succeeding stages of the gradual convergence of the two advancing lines of the impersonal God and the impersonal man. And the Upanishads embody the stages through which these two lines at last become one. And the last word of each Upanishad is, Thou art that. There is but one eternally blissful principle, and that one is manifesting itself as all this variety.